Hey guys and girls, my name is Alan and welcome to this gameplay commentary. So this video is going to be a follow-on from a video that I did last week. I think I published it at the weekend or just before the weekend. Basically in that video I talked about some of my early first impressions of Uncharted 4 / The Lost Legacy co-op survival arena, which is the new game mode that's been added to, as I said, to Uncharted 4 as a free update, but also it came bundled with The Lost Legacy as part of the multiplayer side of things. So if you haven't played it yet and you enjoy co-op, then give it a try. And as I talked about in that video, obviously today's going to be a continuation, so I'm going to cover topics I didn't cover in that first bit, obviously. So in that first part, if you do want to check it out, by the way, I'll link it in the description. I'll also link it on the screen now. I talked about how some matches were kind of long and the reasons why those matches were long. And in my opinion, they mostly stem from the fact there's no life system in Survival Arena, which is a big issue. And I don't know, I hope they're going to address it in the future, but I can't see it happening, to be honest with you. So that's a bit of a big drawback, in my opinion, to playing the game mode. And then that leads to things like rage quitting or players just getting bored and quitting out of a match because it's just taking so long. And then I also briefly touched on the topic of bonus waves and how they were quite fun. So yeah, head over there, check out that video if you want to hear more about that sort of stuff. But as I said, today we're going to be covering some new topics, and hopefully I don't end up doing a part 3 because I do have a list in front of me that I want to go through. I'm going to try and get through it as quick as I can, but obviously I don't want to gloss over anything that I want to talk about in detail. So hopefully I get it done, and then hopefully this match is all I need to do. And then obviously going forward I'll just do different commentaries and stuff. Right, so the match you're watching, believe it or not, is my first ever crushing match on Survival Arena. Now, I didn't actually show the count at the end. I was playing in a party, so I just went on to the next match. I didn't think about it at the time, but I could have shown you that this was my first, like, #1, basically. But you'd have to just take my word for it. I wouldn't lie. I've got no reason to lie. So this is my first ever crushing match. Happens to be on Prison, which is a map that I've played quite a lot already for the stages. So it's a map that I'm familiar with, and a lot of the objectives, as you'll see coming up later on, some of those are basically the ones that featured in the stages, so it's not anything new. So again, maybe, you know, I could have got a worse map, to be honest with you. It's a very clean-cut strategy on this map. You stay up here for the survival rounds, and if it's an objective wave, then obviously you go and do the objective, and then you come back here for the survival rounds. So it's really quite an easy map, to be quite well. Okay, there's 1 or 2 tricky objectives, but for the most part, if it's just killing, then it's a pretty standard map to play on. So could have been worse, and I think I did quite well, given it was my first ever play on Crushing. So playing with a friend of mine, as you can see, and then a pub just joined the match. Right, so that's the gameplay. So in the previous video I did end on, well, I sort of touched briefly on the modifiers and different waves, and as I was saying in that video, even though there are supposedly hundreds of variations of waves, it boils down to a variant rather of certain game types. So you've got killing enemies, which is a survival round, so you'll have modifiers for that, and then you'll have treasure hunt, which you'll have a couple of variations of that. You'll have siege, a couple of variations for that, and assassination, and that's about it. There's like 4 main types of objectives, and there's just going to be different modifiers for those objectives. So you might get treasure hunt with headshots only, or you might get siege with, you know, nades being dropped, that sort of stuff, but it's not actually different types of objectives, which is what I was hoping for. I was hoping for more variety, and I kind of predicted and feared that it would just be variants of existing game modes. So yeah, no surprises there, but some of them are quite fun, as I said in the previous video, but for the, you know, it's not majorly interesting. So if you're hoping for a lot of variety, there's only so much. Yeah, so anyway, the funny story that I was going to talk about before the video ended, and as I was saying in that previous video, treasure hunt, I called it out. I was worried about it being in the game, returning to Arena, and rightly so, because pubs who don't really play that often, or who aren't very good at the game, just can't really handle it, and it's a weird sort of pace to break. I mean, as I said, if you play with a good group of players, it doesn't necessarily have to be a party, but if you play with like people who know what they're doing, know where the treasures are, then, you know, it's kind of smooth, it goes okay. But if you're playing with 2 people who don't know where the treasures are, don't know what to do, just go for kills and don't ever pick up any treasures, and that's happened quite a few times in the short time that I've played. The match just gets drawn out, and quite often, you know, they die, or we fail because we run out of time, or just stupid stuff like that. And I just don't think it's a very good game mode, and I hope, well, again, I'd love for them to remove it out of rotation, but I don't think it's going to happen. So unfortunately we are stuck with it as far as I can tell. But the funny story I was going to talk about is that early on, in one of my early matches for Arena, This treasure is always missed, by the way. Always check this corner. It's always the last one. Well, not always the last one, but most of the time it's the last one. I miss it sometimes as well because it's sort of hiding just behind the wall. You don't really see it as you turn around. Yeah, so anyway, I was playing on Trainwreck for the first time. This was on, I think it was on moderate difficulty or something. Moderate or hard, one or the other. And it was my first time ever playing Trainwreck, which is quite nice. I don't mind playing on that map. It's quite hard though. It's not. It's very small. There's quite a lot of CQC engagements, and it's very easy to get flanked. And you can get shot from all angles basically. So it's quite a hard map. It's nothing like it is in the stages, which is a lot easier because obviously it's just really simple enemies to fight in that one. But anyway, I got we as a team, I was playing with pubs. We got treasure hunt, which obviously I groaned as soon as I saw it. But then to make matters worse, it was flipped world with no radar. I mean, you get no radar on flipped world anyway. But could you imagine that? Playing on a map for the first time. I don't know what anything is, by the way, treasures-wise. And they've given me treasure hunt with pubs, no radar, and flip map. I mean, we failed that wave like 5 times or something stupid like that. But I wouldn't, as I said in the previous video, I don't quit, I don't give up. So I just stayed there and I just tried to do the best I could. And we always seem to fail with like, I don't know, 5 treasures missing, and we just couldn't find them. Well, I couldn't find them. I looked everywhere and I couldn't find them. But as I said, there's a lot of small spaces. There's a lot of verticality as well, and they were like dotted on top of crates and inside carriages and all sorts. So I just thought, like, that is just the epitome of why I thought that this objective would be terrible, and that just confirmed it for me. Cheeky little triple there with the China Lake. So yeah, that was a funny story and a frustrating one, and yeah, I really seriously dislike treasure hunt. I don't think it goes very well at all with arena. And I guess that leads me on to the main topic of that, is that there's not a lot of consistency, I don't think, in between matches. Well, in a match. So you might play 2 matches on hard difficulty, but one match might be a lot easier than the other match, and that's because of the way that, well, the objectives that you get given, or the modifiers that you get given for those objective waves. And I think, again, that's a bad thing. When you play a certain difficulty, you expect a certain level of toughness. You don't expect one match to be super easy and then the next match to be ridiculously hard, just because you got given a random objective, which you obviously you can't control. And even though you might be confident in doing it, it's still harder, or it takes a lot longer to complete. For example, I mean, getting 15 kills in the first wave versus doing a treasure hunt with headshots only as a multiplayer. Obviously the first one's going to be a lot easier, the second one's going to be a lot harder. So it's, I don't know, I think, again, I don't know how they've tested this, and I assume they've done it under preset conditions with a good set of players and what have you. But in the real world, playing with pubs, it's just not the way it works. Not everyone's going to be on the same skill level. Not everyone's going to be experienced at the game, and that's fine. Everyone's got to learn at some point, but they need to make it more consistent, in my opinion. And boss waves, again, if you know what you're doing, it's fine. But if you don't know what you're doing, or if you're playing with people who don't know what they're doing and they're not doing their fair share of the work, it makes everything harder. And from one match to the next, you might have a really good experience in the first match and a really crappy experience in the second match, which I think ruins it. Because if a new player has a really crappy experience, for example, do you think they're going to stick around and play another match? No. So we've lost new players potentially, and you've just annoyed the players who play a lot and who would have otherwise had a good experience if the other player had been decent. So it's just a lose-lose situation all around, to be quite honest with you. And then, of course, not only is it the difficulty factor, but the time factor as well. Some objective waves are very easy, very quick to complete. Some objective waves take a long time. Like the El Dorado boss, for me, takes longer than the Indra boss. And the Indra boss takes longer than Avery. So, well, hang on, Baldridge, Avery? One or the other, probably both, to be honest. I think the Indra boss probably takes longer than both of those 2 bosses. So, I don't know, it's just, I think it's a bit... obviously in Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3, Wave 10, well, actually, maybe more Uncharted 3 than Uncharted 2. Wave 10 was, again, random, so it could have been a kill wave, or it could have been a siege wave. Siege wave generally took a bit longer, but depends on the location of the siege zone. That's, obviously, I'm not saying that all sieges should be the same. Yeah, there are going to be some easy siege areas, there are going to be some hard siege areas. That's a given, I'm not complaining about that. The thing that I'm moaning about is that you might get 2 of the same siege area, but you could get some really easy modifier like triple damage, or you can get a really hard one like headshots only, for example, or melee only. Well, okay, maybe I don't know. Is there a melee only siege area? I think there probably could be. That would be bloody awful. I can predict that would be the bloody nightmare, but they could very well be. So that's the point I'm trying to make. And I don't know, again, maybe it's just lack of testing, or maybe they just assume that pubs are going to be good, and that's just not the case. So I don't know, hopefully they look into that and tweak a few things, as I said, going forward. Right, so I've just about approached the halfway mark of this video, and I've still got quite a long list to go, so I need to hurry up and talk about the other stuff. Hunters, by the way, still run ridiculously fast, and I've been complaining about this since day one. Obviously they haven't slowed them down, so it's annoying, very annoying. I don't understand why they can run so fast, and especially when they grab you mid-jump as well. It's always been a problem in Uncharted. They've always been able to grab you like mid-jump and stuff like that, and it's because of lag, and I understand that's hard to deal with, but after 3 games, come on, please. And as I said, because they run so fast as well, it just makes everything a lot worse. But anyway, that's a minor issue in the grand scheme of things. Okay, so difficulty, that's what I've talked about already. And another thing that I don't understand as well is that the lower levels, the lower difficulties, sorry, are actually, in my opinion, harder than the harder difficulties. So I played moderate to start off with. Okay, my first match was pretty easy, but I played a few after that, and some of them were quite taxing. And I don't know if that's because the players I was playing with weren't very good versus the players I played with originally, but then again, they weren't that good either, so that's not the excuse. I think it could be the modifiers, it could be the boss waves. There's certainly something that's causing moderate to be a lot harder than hard and crushing even. And in fact, I'd say with a good team, I'd say crushing is easier than both hard and moderate with the same set of players. And that's because, I guess, partly because of the level cap. So if you don't know, the level cap, basically, if you hit level 50, then you'll get maximum damage if you play crushing or a hardcore run. But if you play on hard difficulty, it's capped to level 40, and if you play on moderate, it's capped to level 20. So you do have less weapon damage, you do also have less health as well, and that does make the game harder. And when you're accustomed to a certain amount of health, even if you're playing versus tougher enemies, that low level of health catches you out a lot on low difficulties. I've noticed that quite a bit. So if I'm struggling, and I'm not trying to be big-headed here or anything, I mean, I'm a fairly decent player. I've played a lot of Uncharted co-op over the years, and I'm talking a lot. So I'm fairly experienced. I'm a seasoned player. I think it's fair to say that. I struggle sometimes, so I can only imagine what it must be like to jump in day one and think, you know what, I don't want to play on light, but I'll give moderate a go because I'm not that bad at gaming. But as a brand new player, you are going to struggle on moderate, I think so anyway, because there's just so much going on, and as I said, because of all the modifiers and the low level damage that you're not going to be able to do a lot of damage anyway. So again, I think I don't really understand that. I mean, the low levels should be easier than the high level difficulties, and I think to again help with new players coming in, they should probably raise the cap or remove it altogether. I mean, if people want a challenge, they'll play on crushing. You shouldn't have to go to moderate if you want a challenge. You know what I mean? It doesn't really make any sense to me. But the reason why I bring that up is because a friend of mine that I was playing with, he goes, "Oh, well, moderate's not a joke, right?" And I mean, my first few matches were relatively not that bad, so I didn't think anything of it. But as I said, the few matches that I played after, some of those were pretty rough. And I said, I think that train wreck story was one of them. So yeah, it's very surprising to me that moderate can be harder than hard and crushing, which is completely bizarre. But that's just part of the way that the balancing is. And speaking of balancing, when I first started playing, I thought there was some sort of weird matchmaking going on, because obviously, as I said, I'm a seasoned player. I assumed that, I thought because every player that I was playing with wasn't very good, I was being paired with players that were, needed a helping hand, to put it politely. So I thought that was a bit annoying. But then the more I play, the more I realised that they genuinely probably were beginner players, and they chose moderate, which is fine because obviously it's low level difficulty. But these matches were actually pretty hard to play. As I was experienced, and I found it a bit of a struggle. So if they were brand new, which I assume and predict they were, then they must be having an even tougher time. So I don't know. I don't really understand. I don't understand the testing that's gone into it, and all of this just means that if players aren't enjoying themselves, they're going to stop playing. Not only the veterans, because they're having a crappy time, dealing with pubs or whatever, but also the new players joining for the first time. If they have a few matches and they're all terrible matches, again, do you think they're going to continue playing? No. So then we've lost even more players. So I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't get it at all. Alright, so I'm really running out of time now, so I better get a shuffle on. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is enemies using mysticals. I said this in the reveal, not the reveal, the announcement trailer, whatever. I didn't want to see any of this stuff come back into Arena, and unfortunately everything has come back. So Eldorados, Indras, all that mystical stuff, Jinn enemies, they've all returned to Arena, and on the one hand, I can deal with it. It's not that big a deal. Well, yeah, okay, no, that's a lie. It bugs me. I don't like it. But if they made it less frequent, that's what I think would be a lot better. Because at the moment, sometimes you can get mystical waves every single wave. You know, from like wave 1 all the way through to wave 10, just because of the modifiers. So it'll be like Eldorado's, Spectres one wave, then it'll be Indra drops the next wave, and then it'll be Jinn enemies the third wave, and then just back into rotation again. And it's just too much. I think if they limited it to like maximum three mystical waves per match as a maximum, then you know something like that would be okay. But every single wave or every other wave is a mystical wave. It's just too much, especially if you don't like it. And as I said, as you know, for new players in particular who don't realize that if you don't get out of the way, you're gonna get caught by this Indra. If you shoot this enemy and he dies and you're already weak health, you are gonna get down by the Spectres. And you know they're in the middle of this massive cluster, and they just don't know how to handle it. So yeah, I mean that goes hand in hand with the bosses. I didn't want to see the bosses come back, but they're here now, and they only feature in wave 10, and they're a lot easier. So I guess I could deal with it. But I think one of the things that bugs me about the bosses is that if not everyone's playing the objective of that wave is to kill the boss. That's why it's called a boss wave. If you take out the boss, the match finishes. That's how you win. Not everyone knows this, or at least not everyone understands that that's what you have to do. I've seen plenty of players just going around getting kills, and yeah, getting kills is part of it. You need to clear the field so that you can take on the boss. The boss doesn't respawn allies as frequent as he does in the stages, so yeah, that's a completely valid technique, but it doesn't help you complete the match any quicker. And I guess a lot of this comes down to education. The game doesn't really tell you need to do this. I mean, it's fairly self-explanatory. You know, there's a health bar on top of the screen, it's got the name of the boss and everything, but you know, if you're a beginner player, there's not a lot of indication. So I suppose part of that comes down to the game not telling you enough information, and that comes down to the modifiers as well and the objective waves. And yeah, they definitely could explain a lot more and you know, be more forceful about doing it. And that's the same with all objective waves, not just the boss waves. Okay, moving on to the next topic. So I understand why weapons disappear at the end of every wave. It's obviously, I assume it's a technical issue. Obviously, with all those weapons lying around, you can't spawn in enemies as well because it would just be too taxing on the system. And that's fine, I understand that. But they despawn all the weapons. I mean, like, weapons on the opposite side of the map, that's fine. But if there's a couple close to you and you know, you're in an area where you're probably going to hunker down for a bit, I don't see the problem with keeping a few of those weapons there. And they keep the heavy weapons in. So, I mean, I guess that's something. But it would be nice to keep some of the regular weapons as well. Because as I said, I don't buy stuff from the chests, weapon-wise. So, I rely on these pickups. And if it's a wave where enemies are carrying nothing but crap weapons, like Spazzottis for example, what am I supposed to do for the rest of that wave? I'm forced to then buy a weapon from the chest, which I know is an option, but yeah, it's an option that you force me into. It's not really an option in that sense. So that's a little bit annoying. I don't understand why they can't keep a few of the weapons on the map. I already talked about the Jinn and how they're less annoying than they were in Uncharted 3, but they're still an annoying enemy type because they float around. They basically absorb damage and waste ammo, because obviously you don't actually do any damage unless you hit them while they're not flying around, which again, this is completely random. Sometimes they fly around a lot, sometimes they'll just stand there and do nothing for ages at a time, making it a really easy target. So again, I don't know, maybe it could do with some tweaking. Something that really bugs me though is teleporting enemies. Now in Uncharted 3 I did complain about enemies being able to, like brutes for example, being able to climb to ridiculous locations when they're wearing all that armor, carrying a pack 80. Never did I think I would see a brute spawn right on top of me, and I mean literally right on top of me. I kid you not. There's probably several matches I'll post in the future where literally brutes and bosses alike have spawned in, or I'm running away to evade, and they spawn literally right on top of me and try and punch me in the face. I kid you not. It is total BS, and I every time it happens I'm just so infuriated because it's a cheat basically. They spawn on your location when you're evading. That is cheating. And I can't stand teleporting enemies and spawning enemies, and they do it so often as well. You throw an Indra down, you throw an Eldorado down, they escape. The bosses, I mean, I can sort of understand that, but normal enemies doing that as well, escaping from what you've just spent 3k on, that's a bit cheap if you ask me. And as I said, spawning right on top of you when you're evading as well, that's really out of order. So it's just a really bad feature, and I don't understand why that was in the game. Okay, so that's most of the stuff that I've got grievances in terms of gameplay wise. There are some other minor stuff that I'm now going to go into that concern the game mode, but not directly in the game itself. So one of the things that I'm really confused about, and I don't understand the thinking behind at all, is that when the match finishes, the lobby gets disbanded. If you're playing with pubs, the lobby gets disbanded, and you've got to find a brand new lobby with new players and join it, or join a new match or something. What happens if you played with a really good team and you want to continue with this team? I don't understand why they're forcing you to pick up another game. And again, this doesn't help with the whole joining game in session problem that I talked about in part 1. If players are consistently having to find a new lobby, how are they supposed to have these ongoing matches with people they enjoy playing with or whatever? It's just, I struggle to think. I mean, for the stages, you can continue playing in the same lobby with the same set of players. Why can't they apply the same thing to Arena? I really don't understand. I mean, a part of me thinks it's probably to do with the fact that they need to have these games in session filled, but it was never a problem in Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3, so I don't understand why suddenly you have to disband the lobby now. So you play a good game with, a couple of players, and then that's it. See you later. Who knows if you run into them again. And yeah, you could invite them, add them as a friend, invite them, but realistically, who does that after one game with a random person? Come on, please. So that's really weird. I hope they change that in the future. And I think that might be to do with stopping experienced players consistently playing together, and obviously leaving all the beginner players to fend for themselves. But in my opinion, playing with people of equal skill, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You learn at your own pace and you figure things out on your own. Unfortunately, games never end, so you're basically stuck with these players until either you quit or you succeed, which is not ideal. But the general principle of playing with people of the same skill level, to me that's a good thing. I don't mind that. I'd rather play with someone who's on the same level and we figure things out together than playing with a pro who does all the work and I don't get to do anything and I don't get to learn anything for that matter. So I don't have a problem with that, but I don't understand why you have to find a new match as soon as the game ends. That's really bizarre. And then another thing as well is that if you're playing in a private party, you can't even host your own match. You can't pick a certain map. What is that all about? I mean, I tried to play a private match as a duo with a friend the other day. We figured we'd give one of the matches a go. And then we tried to decide on a map to pick, and then we eventually decided on a map to go for. And I went to pick it, and I couldn't see the option to do it. Am I being really stupid? If I am, let me know in the comment section below. How do you actually set a map to come up so that you can play it privately? For whatever, any map, for instance. Because all I saw the option to do was to find a random match, even though we were in a private party. So I don't really understand that either. So let me know, please, if you have the solution to that. And if there isn't a solution to that, note it up, please. Why is there not an option to play a private match? I've toyed around with the idea of doing solos on Crushing for Arena. I may or may not do it, but if I have to rely on the RNG to give me a new map every single time I want to play, what? Just really, what is that? Alright, so I've got two minor topics now to talk about before the end of the video, and I'm going to try and squeeze it in just before we finish off this boss. The first thing is time between waves. It's about 10-15 seconds, which, to be honest, I think is quite short, especially if you're on a big map and you're trying to go across to the other side to pick up a weapon. As I said, I pick up weapons all the time, so if I've only got like 5 seconds after the engagement is over to reach the other side of the map to then pick up a weapon, that's not enough time for me. Maybe make it a bit longer, 20-25 seconds. Not too long, obviously, because I don't want to be waiting like a minute or anything in between waves, but a little bit longer than what it is at the moment. I think it's about 10-15 seconds or something like that, but maybe just an extra 5 seconds or so, just so I can pick up a weapon, compose myself, reload, get ready for the next wave. And the other thing is rewards. I mean, I'm not that fussed about vanity items, so the game only offering skins as a reward kind of doesn't really appeal to me. I don't play for anything like that. I mean, working towards a badge, that'd be quite nice. And as I said, if they added another badge or another space for another badge for Arena, I think that'd be pretty cool, and I'd work towards that for sure. But skins, some people love them. I'm not that fussed. I mean, you know me and vanity items. And speaking of vanity items, I did post a chest opening at the weekend, just something in between because this video took a while to edit and put together. But I did do a chest opening, so if you're interested to see a more recent chest opening of what stuff I've got, then check out the video. I'll link it on the screen. I'll also link it in the description below. But yeah, so that will do it for today's video. I think I managed to talk about everything I wanted to talk about. There's probably going to be 1 or 2 items, but I'll cover that in future gameplay commentaries. So yeah, going forward, I mean, I'm still playing it for the time being, but I don't know, I think there's just too many bad experiences from making me think every time I get home, oh, I want to jump on it and play straight away. There's always 1 or 2 things that I think can I be bothered to put myself through that? You know, is there going to be anyone decent online to play with at this point in time? And I've never had that before in an Uncharted game. Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3, if I wanted to play, I'd be like, yeah, jumping out, I want to play now. And I pick up some really good games with pubs, or maybe if there's an Uncharted 3, there was generally always one person I'd play with, so that was always a good time. I might come back and record another seasoned impressions video for Arena in the future, but I think I've got a pretty decent handle on everything I've talked about so far, so I don't know if there's a need to record another video in the future, but we'll see, who knows. But yeah, as per usual, if you enjoyed the content, consider tapping the like button. I really do appreciate it. And if you've got any thoughts you'd like to share me regarding anything I've talked about today, let me know in the comment section below. Of course, if you know the answer to how you set a private match to a certain map, please let me know in the comment section below. But yeah, until next time, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, take care, and I will see you later.